Selon here from winstrength.com, bringing you the first day back for the 7th week of the Dark Horse program by Brian Olsruh. Like usual, I'll leave links below for Olsruh's video where he explains the program and goes over exactly what the program entails. Very helpful video to watch, as well as links to the Lift Vault website where they've actually taken all the information from that video, place it in a spreadsheet so that you can do the program at home if you want and not have to worry about plugging into the spreadsheet or writing it out yourself. It is a free resource, so I highly recommend checking it out. Just a free Google Sheets. That's what I've been using. Great free resource. So anyway, here we go into the video. It is our first week back after a 1-week break after the second phase. So we're finally moving into our third and final phase for the program. So 3 weeks, 3 phases, week off in between. I actually enjoy the week off. I don't do any training. I just kind of take about 5 to 7 days off depending on how the scheduling falls, and I just leave it at that. I don't think there's anything more complicated you need to do. I found that with this program specifically, because it is so condensed and intense, I do enjoy the week off, and I think my body is enjoying that too. So I think the deload, the rest week, really depends on the type of programming you're doing, as well as your lifestyle and other habits you may have. So if you have a job, if you have exams or studying, you have a family, this and that, are all going to add to this level of stress that we have. So with that in mind, I would say if you have other obligations in life, then maybe not doing anything for a week is going to be fine. I believe I read somewhere it takes around 2 weeks for detraining to start occurring. Obviously we start decaying conditioning levels and our strength levels the day that we don't train, so there is that, but there is this balance because we're not all professional lifters, we're not all trying to hit that 100% maximum efficiency. Nevertheless, here we are, third and final phase, first week back, where I've actually introduced some new movements for the first part. So the program calls for some like hamstring curls and like leg pressing and stuff like that. I don't have those machines obviously in the in the garage, so I've had to substitute those out. I opted for the Dimmel deadlifts, which is an interesting deadlift variety, very similar to a Romanian deadlift, but done with higher reps and with more explosiveness on the eccentric part of the lift. What I'll do is I cut through some scenes and I'll go over voiceover with you so I can walk you through it. So it's pretty much very similar to Romanian deadlift. The biggest difference is obviously the range of motion and the mindset behind the lift. So you just start off like a regular Romanian deadlift and pick it up. But what we're really wanting to focus on is the explosiveness out of the bottom and also that range of motion. So where some people are able to go a fair bit lower past the knee joint, with the Dimmel deadlifts we really want to stay an inch or two just below the kneecap. That way we're not going all the way down and losing that explosiveness there. So again, you can see here we're just going just below the knees and really wanting to fire up as fast as possible. Here's a view from the side. You'll notice really what you're wanting to do is, in essence, you want to hump the bar. You want to make that barbell at the top. You want the weights to clank around a little bit. That shows you that you've got that speed there and that explosiveness coming out. And you really want to think about keeping your weight on the heels with this lift. It's not necessarily a lift where you want to have that balanced weight that you normally get with other movements. You want to really shift that weight back, have most of your weight, 90% of the weight on that heel, and really focus on driving down through the heel and exploding up out of the hole. So you can see here some more reps again. Somewhat slow on the descent and then really firing up from the bottom up. And to maintain that speed, we're really looking at keeping the weights really low. You'll see here this is only 115 pounds. I think I tried for 135 pounds and that was too much weight because I could sense the barbell wasn't moving as fast. Definitely make sure to keep that weight light. It's not a movement that you want to load the weight on, which makes me think it's not the best choice of accessory movement for max effort and volume work, just because that isn't the point of the lift. This might be a great lift for throwing in for extra assistance work or even some conditioning work. This would be great because you're doing that high rep, low weight type movement there with that focus on dynamicness and explosiveness, but not on lifting some heavy weights. So don't focus on the weight, focus on the speed. And next up we move over to the Anderson squats, or out of the hole squats, squats from the bottom, things along those lines. But once you see it, you kind of understand what it is. Basically, instead of starting with the squat on the rack at shoulder height, we're actually starting with the barbell on the bottom pins, just right where you would be at the bottom of a squat. So kind of it takes a bit of time to set it up, just so you can figure out where exactly you are at the bottom of a squat. Start with the barbell there, and then you kind of crab walk, maneuver underneath the barbell, and then you squat back up and then squat down, resting the barbell similar to a pin squat on the pins again, and then squat up and down. So what this aims to do is remove any and all stretch reflex, any and all momentum, any and all stored elastic energy that you might have from the bottom and rebounding, and you're really turning the squat into a dead squat, I guess, where there is no momentum. You're kind of starting in this tensioned position at the bottom, and then standing up again, so you're kind of having to drive a lot of power out of the hole, as it were. And one of the benefits of this is, much like a deadlift, you remove any and all momentum, so you're removing that stretch reflex, the elastic energy at the bottom, so it's impossible for you to rebound out of the bottom of the hole. So this helps develop your out of the hole strength, because you don't have that energy from the top down. You're not rebounding back. So this will transfer. It should transfer over to the regular squat. So much like the deadlift is one of the harder lifts because it starts from a standstill. If you do like bounce deadlifts or something like that, you'll notice that the second rep is easier than the first rep because you're getting that rebound and momentum. Much like a squat, when you come down and come back up, you can work your technique so you add that drive at the bottom to assist you coming up and rebounding out of the hole. So by removing that, you're training your body to be able to fire up without that assistance. So it's kind of it is an overload technique, and it really teaches you to start in a really good position out of the bottom of the hole, because you have to start from a dead stop. And then it also teaches your body how to fire up without having that rebound, momentum, stretch reflex happening at the bottom. So all those two things will help add to the full squat when you start going back to it. And obviously you're going to have to drop the weights here, because it is a different variation, and it is slightly harder because you're starting from this compressed position. You can't get a full breath of air like you would at the top of a squat. There's a couple of things you can't do that you can do at the top of a squat. Your footwork might not be perfect, and this is where that comes into the training and just practicing and ingraining that technique, so you know exactly, I stand like this and then I get under the bar. And you might have differences with the back angle depending on how you can squeeze under that barbell there. That's what I've noticed with my own Anderson squat. So things to keep in mind when you do it, but I think it is a great movement. I haven't done them in years. I've forgotten about them, to be honest with you, but I think they're a great way to add some explosiveness to your lift, because you really do have to drive up. You have to really create huge amounts of force in order to start from a dead stop, much like a deadlift. And that will just transfer over to your regular squat, like I said before. And then we finish up. The next couple of movements are just wood choppers and mountain climbers. I use the band. I might be shifting over to dumbbells next week just to get some different stimulus there with the wood choppers. And then the mountain climbers are simple, just to keep that blood flowing. I like to kind of do them on some dumbbells just because of some wrist issues. I don't like having my wrist that flat on the floor. Yeah, it's just old, whatever the case may be, old injuries, just old discomfort that's coming up there, so I don't really like to do that. Then we move on to volume sets. Again, we keep keeping with the same movement, Dimmel deadlifts, same weight. Actually, we dropped the weight, kept the reps at the same level, just because of fatigue setting in. For the max effort, we did 5 sets where we did 15 reps, so that's like 75 total working reps. I did want to drop that weight a little bit. I noticed the explosive nature of the lift was slowing down a little bit, so I wanted to pump up that speed again and do that. And then we switched over to some box squats. The program just prescribed some box squats. That's been the one common theme for the squatting movement. I quite like them. It's a good variation, I think, just because we aren't doing It's a good variation to the main squat, just because again it's removing that momentum out of the bottom of the hole and teaching you how to sit back a little bit depending on your style of squatting. I don't think it's better or worse, I just think it's a nice variant to add, and again teaches you how to not have too much reliance on that rebound stretch reflex at the bottom, which is important, but I think if you can train around that in your assistance movements, you're going to gain a lot more in your conventional squat when you can put that rebound momentum back into the lift. And then we're wrapping up there with some dynamic effort deadlifts. The dynamic effort didn't go so well today. I had to cut off a couple of sets just because the time was getting away from us. We started pushing an hour 45 minutes. I really didn't want to do that. We also cut off a set of volume, but with the dynamic effort deadlifts, we're kind of sticking at that. We're still using the gray bands. I did hit 235 for the first 5, and then we did have to drop that down to 225 for the last 2 sets there, just because the form was starting to break down. My lower back wasn't keeping up. I think that huge amount of volume work with the dim wall deadlifts is catching up to me for the dynamic effort, because that was a dynamic effort in the sense too, because we're doing those speed reps, and then we are switching over to more dynamic effort deadlifts. So something I might have to look at next week to see if that is something I want to keep in or change, just because we are kind of stimulating the same muscle, we're not getting that maximal effort work that the program would prescribe normally. So this is something I might have to play with, but it was a nice variant, at least this week, to introduce that dim wall style deadlift. Like usual, I'll leave links here for a playlist for the Dark Horse training program vlog, so you can see my journey so far and then see how I progress in the future, as well as that final review of the program. This has been Selwyn from Win Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.